So with that, I want to get started with today's topic, which we'll talk about, how voice AI is really impacting this new normal, specifically around the concept of business continuity. So real quick, the agenda. We're going to talk about what voice AI is, kind of setting the stage on how that is driving people to be more productive and how that can help support a remote workforce. We'll jump into then the AI's role when it comes to the new normal, which is this work from anywhere concept, and how enabling the team is something that is so critical that a lot of businesses don't think about. And lastly, we'll get a little more tactical into the training, coaching, compliance. So basically the tactical elements of voice AI that can really improve productivity in dealing with this new normal. And my name is Pete Lee. So I'm with Observe.ai, and I have a lot of experience working in this space. The one thing that I think is very interesting now is the businesses that are leveraging technology in the right way are obviously probably doing a little bit better than the ones that are not. But leveraging technology is not about the technology itself, but it's also about the people, which you'll hear that theme today throughout the presentation. And real quick, just to prove that, I'm thinking just to prove that this is a live and not a recorded session, I'm trying to think of a live event. So I know that the NHL season has been announced. I know that the Premier League and La Liga has been announced for, I believe, middle of June. So hopefully that kind of frames that this is a live session. So real quick, before we jump into the main topic, what is voice AI? So voice AI is really the ability to analyze conversations between the customer and the agent, and with that insight, improve what is the most important thing for all of us, which is customer experience. And we believe to do that, it's really around maintaining quality. And obviously that's getting harder and harder today because folks are demanding more. It's a consumer-driven economy. But also there's a new normal of people working from home. And so the demands have changed, right? So how has voice AI really shifted? If you think about it, it really starts with the technology to allow voice AI to be able to compute at the level we are today. Back in the early 2000s, folks are building servers and networking equipment and storage, and it's very expensive to process calls. You can think about the cost of being able to analyze and the lack of accuracy. But due to the increased compute power of all of the public clouds, all the different services, IaaS, PaaS, voice AI now is at the forefront because now you can analyze calls at a much higher accuracy, at a much lower cost, and at a much faster efficiency. And with that comes obviously the insights that you can now trust to drive the system, which leads to more coaching to enable the agents and more performance insights to drive businesses. So let's agree on three things. Business continuity is a very, very large topic. And when most people think about business continuity, they think right away around technology and infrastructure and how do we keep the systems up? But the one critical element when it comes to customer service is that business continuity is actually the people, not just the people working from home, right? That a new paradigm shift, but then really the support system to support the people to work from anywhere. So when we talk about that, it's really the culture and the workflow, right? So how can the people still maintain the high empathy for customers if they themselves are dealing with this new normal? So how can you maintain a proper culture and then the workflow for them to do their jobs properly? Secondly, is all around how do you then enable the teams to be successful? How do you keep them motivated? I think a lot of this really revolves around the ability to have transparent information so that they're able to react quickly because everybody wants to do great on their job. However, it's becoming harder and harder as some of the different things such as engaging a coworker or getting feedback from your manager is just not as accessible. And the last thing is, we talked a little bit about this earlier. I think one of the challenges with artificial intelligence is that there's all this technology, but ultimately the usability of it is really all that matters. And if people aren't using the tools properly, and if you're not fostering collaboration and making the tools very easy so that your agents are able to stay close to their customer, none of that will happen, right? So what I'm saying here is all these things really revolve around supporting the people who are the contact center agents, who are the representatives of the brand more so than ever. So let's get a little bit more tactical. So what are the challenges of the environment today, right? As you're dealing with this new normal, so work from home, work from anywhere, having to deal with little things such as noise in the background, your dog walking around, your baby's crying, right? These are all the new normals we're working with. Well, from a quality analyst perspective, their job is to maintain that quality. It's so critical, right? Maintain that quality of the brand to the customers, and so that the agents are following the scripts, following compliance, showing empathy, and so forth. And that happens as they walk around the floor, engage agents, react when they hear something that is off, or pull an agent off the floor when they need to be working on something. Now, all of that is unaccessible, right? That is a huge challenge because now it has moved from a people business to a virtual business. Secondly, it's really around training, so adaptive learning, right? How do you maintain an environment so that you're able to train the agents to react properly to this new normal, right? Unfortunately, this is also a very much a one-on-one people business, right? For people to adopt to training, you hear from the supervisor. So now it's driven by data. So A, you have to trust the data. But B, you have to make the data very much accessible so that now not only is the training taking place, but then both sides can trust that this is something that they should be working on and agree on it together. And then the third, I think one of the most important elements is how do you deal with this new normal when there's an ever-changing insights coming from the customers that is unpredictable, and yet you're trying to adjust business to support that. It's easy to ad hoc kind of make some adjustments, but one adjustment without proper validation and objective information can put you down the wrong path and put you behind your competitors. So a big key of this is now how do you provide this insight of how consumers are reacting to this new normal so that you can then build the rest of the business, the operators, the HR, the marketing, the support system, supply chain, to be able to adjust to the new normal that's taking place. So in essence, your contact center mission control has moved from a brick and mortar to this virtual one that we have to adopt to. And really, that's the key. How do you adopt it so that you can support the most important people who are the agents? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share a quick demo and kind of walk through those three use cases you saw earlier. Number one, as the agent is trying to see all this information and learn, how can they themselves improve very quickly with the insights coming from voice? The second piece is, as a QA, how can I find the right calls so I can maintain quality across the spectrum of all the different calls that are coming in and not being very manual? And the third thing is, as an executive, how would I be able to dig in to find out some insight that I can bring back to business? So all of this is predicated on voice insight driving the highest accuracy possible. Great. So I'm going to first take the role as an agent. Okay. So as an agent now, I'm dealing with, hey, I have to be able to be adjusting my style to work with customers in this new normal. So the one thing that what we need to provide for the agents is objective information so that they can learn on their own and they can be able to see where they need improvement. So what Voice AI provides, and this is a sample dashboard, is now the agent can see their call. So not just hear their call, but see their call. So let me tell you what that means. So now as an agent, I can visually see the entire call. And instead of having to listen to the entire call to see what's going on, I can jump right into the area where potentially, okay, here's a big behavioral compliance issue. So now I can observe and I can learn what is going on here and get comments from my supervisors real time. One of the biggest challenges in adapting to this new normal is that the agent no longer can just get feedback every 2 weeks during their session with their boss. They need to be able to see this so that they can react to it. So what voice AI provides is visibility for the agent. Secondly, from a QA perspective, I want to maintain quality. However, I can't do that if I have to listen to 100% of the call. So if voice AI and the machine can do that for me, and then I jump into what's important for me, right? So for example, I, as a QA, want to start analyzing a call that have negative sentiment, okay? And then I also want to analyze a call that has dead air. So two things that are very important to me, right? I want to see how my customers are reacting, and I want to see if there's average handle time issues. So now by doing that filter, I can now sort down to the exact calls where that has taken place and jump right into the calls itself. And so now after selecting the call, I can now also jump right into the moment. So I want to see where dead air happened. I'll jump to a negative sentiment. I want to see where dead air happened. I'll jump right into the area where there's dead air. So now I can perform this task, select the right calls. I can now find the calls. And I can also perform the evaluation right from this call that allows me to see everything from one interface. So now there's a source of truth to finding the calls, letting the machine do it. And then I also have a visual that allows me to be able to score accurately and objectively and provide insights back to the agent in a very quick manner. And of course, all of this insight is gathered so I can see a dashboard of all of the different quality metrics that are important to me. Again, providing full vision. And the last piece is if I was an executive and I need to find immediate insights to what's going on. And I'm going to use an example, right? I think everybody is viewing Amazon as a competitor. I can quickly search on my voice calls and find out all the times Amazon has occurred, and then jump right into the call where it occurred to listen to how the customer was talking about a competitor. And obviously with Voice Insight, I can also dig in to see if this had bad sentiment or some other metrics. So I can slice and dice and find the information very, very quickly. So again, all of this provides a level of predictability, objectiveness, and transparency so that the agent, the QA, and the executive can dig into the most important thing, which is the conversation between the agent and the customer. So I want to walk through a case study real quick. And so companies that have adopted to, I think, artificial intelligence are probably a little bit more adaptive with this age, and it's not too late. I think somebody once brought up to me, you know, when is the right time to jump on AI? And the truth is the right time is always now, because it's like investing. You want to invest now because the more information you gather, the more insight you'll gather. So this is an example of a customer that has adopted this a little bit earlier before the COVID crisis. And this has actually helped them tremendously kind of dealing with this crisis. So some of the challenges that they face is that obviously there's limited insights for them to coach the agent. As you know, if this is a national auto repair disruptor, and so they're dealing with customer styles throughout the country. They're dealing with many manufacturers and parts. What is the right way to coach and train the agents immediately so that they're able to adjust to each style? It's been very challenging, right? Especially challenging when you're trying to gather insights from manually listen to 1% of the call as opposed to capturing all the calls, right? The second is around the certain soft skills. So as I mentioned earlier, this is normal. Nobody knows how customers will react, right? There's certain areas where there's a complete lockdown where people can't drive their car. So obviously their demands on mechanics are a little bit lower. But there's other areas where there's an urgency for people to do different things with their cars, right? Whether it's get to a food bank or do other things. So again, you have to be able to understand the sentiment of each of these different areas, right? But it's impossible to address those soft skills without the objective information that allows you to see exactly what you can train and coach on. And the last one is around unmet opportunity. So, the best way to put it is there's obviously opportunities that these critical, right? For example, a lot of people may view, hey, I don't drive my car. So then, many people have a little bit more time on their hands, so they want to address some of the elements around the vehicle, right? So there's some opportunity there. So by leveraging voice AI, a couple of things happen. Number one, by to all of the areas where there's potential issues with sentiment and empathy, now you can provide coaching to the agents that need to improve on that area. But also the other thing to consider is also replicate the best agents who are addressing customers in a better state. So now there's not only a better training program to address the problematic areas, reproduce the better areas, but also then be able to spot different trends, that you can create different nuances in different geographies. The second is there's a massive increase in bookings due to better understanding of different soft skills. So perfect example, customers in New York and Texas react very differently, different accents, different tones, different styles. So by understanding those styles and actually addressing them in different ways, there's actually an increase in booking because now your agents are more empathetic and they're more results-oriented. And the last one is actually an increase in revenue in certain areas because now you're able to spot trends and focus your agents on areas that there's actual activity, right? So one of the biggest challenges is if there was different lockdown restrictions across the country, why are you focusing on areas where there's no vehicles being driven around, but instead on areas that actually have a higher demand? And so with that focus and being able to spot those trends within the call, you're able to then address those areas and focus your agents, which is leading increased revenue. And actually moving forward after this new normal, this is not going to stop. And this has been a huge game changer for this company. So overall, the voice AI journey revolves around people. And really there's a maturity in doing this. And then wherever you're at in your level of maturity, the goal of all of this is to turn this environment from what I call a suck-less center all the way to a more of a strategic-led center, right? And let's be very, very transparent. Customer experience, and there's stats everywhere, basically has a 50% success, right? If you were to ask any random customer, and they say that how do they view customer service through every single experience, the actual stat is 50% is good, 50% is bad, and that is extremely low. That is a unforgivable metric. And some other things to think about, the scary part of that is half of those customers with one bad experience will probably never engage that vendor. And now a customer experience agent has become the forefront of being a brand representative, right? So if you want to move to a more of a strategic center, you got to really start with impacting the quality, which is the QAs, who are scoring and coaching and training all of the agents. Secondly, you have to then use all of this insight to improve the mindset performance. So again, if you trust the insight, you're able to adjust the team, which again, people are going to be happier because they can see their data. But because they can now trust their own data, they can be more successful. They're going to have a better performance to the customer. And lastly, with all of this in place, businesses can make pivots based on all of this information to ultimately be as adaptive as possible to any circumstance, right? So all of this insight is leading to then results.
Hey, Pete, I have a quick question on the demo that you just shared. There was an Analyze tab, and the question is that tab functions as a Google search for the content of the calls. Are there any plans for expanding to an analysis more in line to the voice of the customer?
Yes, so a couple of things. So that is a great question. I think if you look at the voice AI journey, right now we're still very early in artificial intelligence. Today we're obviously using things where we can analyze and find and dissect calls. But what you're getting to is tell me what I don't know. right? The voice of the customer, unstructured business insights, finding things you don't know. So the first thing that we're doing that's already in place is based on the calls that are in, the machine can now auto-suggest what they think the customer should be asking. So for example, what we have with Analyze now is if you, for example, put in a disclosure such as this call may be recorded, there's false positives because people saying that in different ways. The machine can now learn and suggest and say, here are the 50 variations of how that's being said, so you don't miss those false positives. And so that's the first step, is the machine can learn from the environment. And then now after learning, then they can be suggesting, what you should be doing next, right? Sort of the assist. And really that's tied into some of the things we're building around real time, so that when information is coming in, not only are you finding information, but the machine is saying, based on these trends, you should be doing this. So I think if you look at where we're going with AI, obviously the first piece is to have the most accurate speech platform that allows you to answer questions. Now the machine is suggesting things. And lastly, the machine can augment the agent and be able to provide assistance for what they do. And thank you for that question. We'll answer more as we look into those questions. So in conclusion, and we'll actually have a question for Q&A, and if there's more questions, we're happy to answer. But when it comes to business continuity, please don't forget about the people, the culture, the workflow of basically what I believe is the most important element of customer experience, which is the agent. If you can maintain that environment for the agent, you can obviously impact the customer base. And we believe the best way to do that is to maintain quality and enable the ecosystem around the agent, the supervisors, the QAs, the contact center operators, the trainers, so that you can all have more insights to drive better experiences, leading to better CX. And really, this is not, and failure is not an option, because we know after this new normal, the business demands are not going to change, right? The customer base are going to be even more demanding. The agents are going to be even more important to be the front-facing brand of the environment. Before we jump into Q&A, want to share a couple of things. I think our team has done a great job kind of digging into handling this new normal with the Genesis team. We built a remote-enabled call center bundle that really looks at the trends of call surges and dealing with that. So check it out. Go to observe.ai/resources, and hopefully this will be relevant for you. But happy to answer more questions as you kind of dig in. And lastly, I want to thank everybody for attending. Before we turn to the QA session, I want to just iterate the fact that this AI journey is something that I think is being brought to the forefront. But the power of AI really starts with, I think, time to value and also the usability of the people, because AI is here to support people, and anybody that doesn't understand that doesn't understand the true essence of what technology is being built for. And so hopefully you got that sense from this presentation, and really what we're trying to do around quality with the Observe AI and the Genesis team. So with that, we'll answer some of the questions. And well, if there's any additional questions, I can also read the Q&A, but if there's any additional questions, please go ahead and ask.
Hey, Pete. So yeah, great job answering Haley's question from Upgrade. I see your teammate also gave her an answer via the chat. If anyone in the audience has any other questions, you can enter them in the Q&A box. We have about 5 minutes left. We'd love to hear from you. There's another question. How do you measure customer sentiment on calls?
Got it. No, that's a great question. And this is where the power of AI really is brought to the forefront. So, traditionally, measuring customer sentiment is probably done with surveys and just as random calls to customers. And that is, 1% of the spectrum, right? And to be honest, I don't remember the last time I responded to a customer survey coming from a vendor. So where that evolved is, keyword spotting, right? Where you can find where customers express happy, sad, and look for those things. But the true essence of that, where it's evolving to, is using AI to understand the tone changes of the customer. And so what we've done is we build an AI model that listens to tonality changes, intent, before and after context, that allows us to be able to drive a higher accuracy of sentiment. because when somebody says something, their tone, the sarcasm in their tone, the change of their inflection does matter on whether it's a priority for them or not. So really the big answer is, with modern AI, we have been able to understand the actual tone of how it's being said instead of just what is being said. That's a great question.
Great,
and I think, yep.
No, please go ahead.
No, that's a great question. I think there's a whole bunch of things that we're solving with AI, and then really it's what it's meant to do, which is to address the areas that humans can do. Because you can imagine, if you're trying to capture sentiment just by listening to every single call, you're listening to millions of calls, and then having to go in and tag where those sentiments happening, right? But in essence, artificial intelligence can go into every single call and detect that and bring that insight to you, so that allows you to react and be able to properly respond to those moments.
Yeah, that's very true. I think especially nowadays where, customers can't go into a brick and mortar shop, they are calling these centers more often and speaking to people, and just all that call volume needs to be analyzed somehow. I did see something about sentiment again from Haley. Currently, negative sentiment can be deleted. Are there any plans to expand this to positive sentiment as well?
Absolutely. I think, again, as you're going into AI, what we want to really focus on is the accuracy to be able to react to what you're detecting on the call. I think even from a negative sentiment perspective, that can be broken down to many different areas. But obviously, there's different things that are being said. And one of the things that's actually pretty interesting that is sort of next in our AI roadmap is a moment on a call is not just one thing, right? So you find a negative sentiment. That could mean something different versus positive sentiment, obviously, right? But what's more important is the signals, right? Is basically the aggregation of the sentence. So for example, in a call, if a negative sentiment occurs in the beginning, but it's more positive towards the end, that's probably a good call. However, it's not just negative positive, right? Somebody can be talking about negative sentiment and just be talking about their day, and it has nothing to do with the call that actually impacts business. So the whole concept of signals is that now you can aggregate, time, another intent, keywords that's being said, and negative, and group that together to better capture that. And that is also happening with some of the things we're doing around just overall sentiment and other things. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but where we're getting to is really being able to capture areas where our customers and our partners can react to different sections of the calls. And we think the next step is obviously, breaking it down at each granular level, but also the grouping of it so that you can capture different signals within the call.
Awesome. I'm just going to keep going with the questions. I know we're at time, but I do see there's, lots of curiosity, and we can, continue this call to make sure we answer all the questions. And again, we'll be sharing this recording after. So Pete, can you please give more details about how AI captures and analyzes caller sentiment? Sorry.
Got it. Yeah. Hey, that question, sort of addressed, and if we want to dig into a different session on, how the AI is occurring, we can definitely happen. But I think this is something we shared earlier, which is the AI is able to understand the tone, right? Understanding the tone, the intent before and after. So, obviously a tone shift is pretty easy to detect, right? If somebody's happy or sad, and with enough information, you can detect this next tone is probably going to be X type of sentiment or not, right? But the other thing that also matters when it comes to kind of accuracy is obviously the intent of what's being said before and after, right? And the context that's happening before and after. So that's also contributing to it. So it's a long-winded, but there's a lot of math behind trying to do all these things, right? The intent, the tone, the context, to add that into how we're tagging. And then, we'd be happy to set up a deeper session. We'll bring in data scientists and some of our sales engineers to dig in. But overall, for me, it is just a massive amount of math that is able to analyze all of this and be able to come out with a simple UI for a business to react to.
Great, thank you. A great question here. So, this is a Genesis webinar, so we want to know, how do you integrate with Genesis?
So that is a great question. So we are on the Genesis Cloud. Obviously, there's an integration already taking place, so it's a very simple integration. Go check out Genesis App Foundry, which is where our app sits, but all the other great partner apps that are sitting there. You'll be able to download our app and be able to run it. There's a trial that's included, but really it's an integration. We get the metadata and call recording from the Genesis Cloud platform, and then off you go. And then really the big key of that is, once we get the call recording metadata, you're already going to have insights into your environment. And really the next steps of that is, now that let's really drill in and tune in, right? Let's find the things that are important to you, the compliance, regulatory, customer sentiment, different phrases, competitor mentions, and really set up a dashboard for all the different teams and groups, and then be able to then address the quality analysts and the supervisors who want to take that insight to create better agents. So overall, very simple integration, but I want to just, again, hammer on two things. I think with the Genesis partnership, we go live very quickly because of the integration. But obviously, we want to customize it for the experience so that we can ultimately create the best results for our customers.
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great point. Just pointing back to the resources tab on the screen, you will find the Observe AI app listing on the App Foundry Marketplace. And like Pete said, it's super simple because these guys have done all of the heavy lifting in the beginning and built the integration so that it's just ready for you to click to install. As a Genesis Cloud customer, you can log into the App Foundry Marketplace and you can install your apps. You can do a free trial. And again, once the Observe AI team gets involved, they can help you really customize that to your direct needs. All right, so I see one more question here. What is the process to go live on your platform? So I guess that was the question we just answered. So the process to go live on your platform, how long does the integration take? What services are involved?
Yeah, I'll elaborate on that, because I think that's been really sort of a black eye for speech analytics for a long time, right? And I think that's one area that has shifted massively in the last couple of years, is, again, moving to cloud and having all these integrations in place. Once we get the metadata, so the metadata is all the things important on the call, right? So which is like the caller name, the caller profile, the timestamps, and all of that. So we'll get that from the Genesis App Foundry with basically the integration we have in place. And then combining that with, obviously, the call recordings, we'll be able to have the results, right? So I think that alone has completely shifted from months and months of go live to days. And then really comes the important part, which is the user enablement piece, right? Setting up the dashboard in the right way to drive the experiences. Because obviously this is not a one size fit all. But I do want to emphasize the fact that, with the Genesis partnership, the integration, which is really the piece that has stalled many speech analytics, voice AI type platforms, is solved. So then now we can go to the important part, which is getting it usable for the end user.
Awesome. And related to that, how often do you send data to the Genesis system? Every hour, or how long?
Right. I believe right now it's every 30 minutes. So the 30-minute, whenever we get the recording, the insights are created. I believe it's relatively, I want to say in seconds, but really depends on the volume and the different processing. But the insights are near real time. But with Genesis, we're getting the call recordings, I believe, every 30 minutes, and we are working on that real time stream, which obviously will then do different things. But for today, it's every 30 minutes.